There's two ways of thinking, positive and negative.
Yeah.
One or the other cannot coexist at the same time in the mind. So the one that you focus on most is the wolf you feed the most.
You might be in a family that you share those things. And maybe that, oh, that's crazy, that's impossible, you're never gonna do it right. For you, you use it as fuel. But so many others, that overwhelms them, and then they stop the dreaming.
The people, the doers that do get there, do one thing in common. They know their focus and they meditate upon that focus. And what happens, something very magical. People, places, and circumstances start to show up. And then the next thing that happen, ideas, they're massive action takers.
I've done, the vision boards. I have them in my background, I have them in my phone.
Get rid of your vision board and create an action board, because action board will take you to inspired action. And through that process, you actually realize and figure out, oh, that wasn't that important, therefore it goes away.
We've got some
Hey,
fresh new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And
doing some
I'm
things that I know
Luis.
you haven't
And you're
heard
listening to the
before.
Content is Profit podcast. That is right, guys. And if you're enjoying these episodes, go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at BizBrosCo.
That is right. And if today's guest help you move one step closer towards your goal, which I am certain she will, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review.
That's right. So welcome back, guys. Today we have one of the most inspirational stories we've ever had in here. She'll make you want to tackle life with all you've got.
That is right. Just listen to this. She went from homeless with only $800 to selling her company to Campbell's Soup for over 200 million smackaroos. I'm sure there's plenty that we can learn in there.
Not only that, but she grew up in an orphanage in Mexico, and later on in her life, she went back and helped rescue children from a drug cartel, some of which were being sex trafficked.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing, guys. Please, I'm ready to cry. I'm ready to laugh. I am ready to be inspired. Please welcome public speaker, author, and founder of Maggie's All Natural Fresh Salsa and Dips, Magie Cook, or Magdalena de la Cruz Cook Garcia. What's up, Maggie? Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I will say this is the first time I've been in a podcast where somebody said my full name and didn't get it wrong.
Let's
go. We are Hispanic too, so I think I had a big weight on my shoulders. Like, I cannot mess this one up.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes we read Hispanic names with like the English version
Yeah.
accent, and we're like, no, it cannot happen this time. But Maggie, it's an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure and honor to have you here on the show and sharing your story. I remember when I first met you through our amazing friend Bart Miller, and I think the call was supposed to be like 15 to 20 minutes, and we ended up talking for like hour and a half, and it was such a cool conversation on both ends, learning your story and what you're doing to help a ton of people and what you've done to help a ton of people. So we're like, this is somebody that we have to bring onto the show and hopefully help more, be in front of you. So
Yeah.
thank you. Absolutely.
Maggie, let me start by saying I went to your website and I watched that speaker's reel you got in there. And oh my goodness.
My name is Magdalena de la Cruz Garcia. I am the founder of Magie Salsa LLC. This is a company that I started with a gift of $800 when I was homeless, and a company that sold a Campbell's Soup in 2015.
When I first tasted Magie Salsa, I was blown away. It was awesome product. I could tell it was fresh. I could tell it was made with quality ingredients and knew that it would be a great product for Walmart.
I am from Mexico, and this was life in an orphanage. And yes, these are my 68 brothers and sisters. Ever since I can remember, I mostly worked in construction, digging ditches, cutting trees, and gathering topsoil from the mountains. At times, we had no food for weeks, so some of my brothers and I resorted to hunting with our bare hands. We basically hunted at night using spotlights and nets to catch our prey. When I was about 6 years old, I started digging caves in sides of mountaintop canyons. These were my secret hiding places to rest. This was a way to try to escape, to cope with the things that I saw and lived. As a way out of the orphanage, I pursued basketball and got recruited in high school to play for the Mexican national team, but I broke my collarbone. My ticket out was months later when I got recruited to play basketball for the University of Charleston, and that's how I came here. I learned to play basketball really good by covering my eyes with the help of an orphan kid named Pancho. We found Pancho in a dumpster as a baby. He couldn't walk because he had spinal bifida, and my job was to carry him everywhere I went. When I graduated college, I couldn't find a job and I became homeless. I ended up living in the streets and also in the woods in a nearby forest. But to be honest, I didn't even know that I was homeless because that's how I lived most of my life. In 2004, I started my salsa company with a gift of $800 when my friends entered me into a salsa contest. I won the contest and I had an aha moment. I started my business and it grew very, very fast. My products sold in 38 states to supermarkets like Walmart's, Whole Foods, Sam's Clubs, and many more companies carried my products. Shortly after my company was sold to Campbell's, I went back to Mexico and helped save 31 orphan children who were in grave danger. Some of them were victims of sex trafficking. We later were able to involve the federales and the military in the continuous pursuit of the safety of these kids. The best type of giving currency is not money. It is the willingness to give your life for the service of others. Never take for granted one single moment of your life. Change starts now.
One of the things that we have every single morning when we wake up is we have two choices. We either let life control us or we take control of our lives. I am so grateful and thankful now that I joyously, emotion, I'm experiencing action. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Maggie. How about Maggie? Do not go. Maggie, stay up here.
Like literally, I got what we said in Spanish called chicken skin, you know, like.
Do we say that in Spanish?
Yeah, piel de gallina.
Tengo chicken skin.
You know, but I got goosebumps, like watching that. I was like, wow. Why has my brother been hiding this person from me, right? Like, what an incredible story, right, of resourcefulness. You know, you literally went on and tackled life, and after all those challenges that you had. So we know part of your story, but the audience might not be as familiar with your story. So why don't you start by sharing a little bit of, how did you get to where you are right now?
Yes, I was born into an orphanage in Mexico, and this was in central Mexico, Michoacan. If you look at the map, if you put the finger right in the center of it, it's right next to Mexico City. So we lived up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. So I really didn't get to see civilization. Even coming to America was a shock for me.
Wow.
And I remember growing up with, over 200 kids at a time, sometimes living there, from babies to young adults, that were going to high school, and only 2 caregivers. So there's a lot of things that happened because we weren't supervised. Like, mostly we grew ourselves up because I remember when I was a kid, I was paired up with a young adult. And then when I grew up, I was paired up with a kid. So we kind of grew ourselves up. And to be secluded in an environment like that, and to have the experience of having so many kids come from the streets that had their own issues. And it was just, it was really hard. And I think that the way that I came out of it was that I was constantly visualizing coming out of there and becoming a super successful person. I visualized myself with long hair, with a suit, behind a mahogany desk, even though I hadn't seen anything really outside of the barbed wire fence. But I remember watching something like that in a movie of a power woman. And we watched like a couple movies for like 7 years in a row. So it was like really ingrained. And I think that it was sort of, there were good times and there was really tough times. And sometimes it felt like I was stuck in a place that I couldn't get out because, they were my caregivers, our parents. And at one point they adopted 60 kids. So they all have our last names, Cook Garcia. My father was American. My mother is Mexican-American, and they went down to Mexico because they had a calling. So I'm trying to, it's a long story.
Yeah.
Short. But I came to America on a scholarship to play basketball. What people don't know is that when I was in junior high, I was always looking for something to help me get out of the orphanage. And I discovered basketball because soccer, football, was very popular. And so I wanted something different. And I learned how to play basketball out of watching Michael Jordan and in my breaks in junior high school.
Wow.
And I became so good that I got recruited to play basketball for the Mexican national team.
Wow.
And I went to Mexico City. They wanted me. I waited 3 months, and then one day I went out and played football americano, American football, with my brothers, and I broke my collarbone. And 3 days later, the Mexican national team called, and I couldn't go. And
My goodness.
this was probably, I think, 4 or 5 months. Our caregivers took a big bus, those guajoloteras, the big buses, school buses, and they did a tour in the United States, and they asked us to come by a picnic they did the tour to raise funds for the nonprofit for the Mano de Ayuda. And there happened to be the coach at the University of Charleston at that picnic, and that was in West Virginia. And she saw me play, and she told my caregiver, I want her to come play for me on a scholarship.
Wow.
But what people don't know is that when I broke my collarbone, my father told me that my dreams were over. And he's a doctor. Like he stretched my front back because he was trying to find out what was wrong. And when he said that, I cried, but I was like, no, I believe that there's got to be something better. There's got to be a reason why. And I was just telling myself this. But the point that I want to say is that if I would have sat down in the sidelines that day and not played because I had heard that my dreams were over, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today.
Wow.
And it's about mindset. And I think that everybody has the power to use it. But somehow, even when I was meditating in my cave, I lived in the cave in the orphanage. This was in the mountains. It was my secret hiding place to kind of get away from everything. And I remember using my mind and writing my goals and doing things that I later read in books. This is why I really think that everybody has access to bigger and greater things that we don't even realize we have, but we just have to quiet our minds and really think. There's two ways of thinking, positive and negative.
Yeah.
One or the other cannot coexist at the same time in the mind.
Yeah.
So the one that you focus on most is the wolf you feed the most.
Yeah.
And, there's been a lot of people that have come out the orphanage, and a lot of people that didn't make it. And people ask me a lot, how come you were able to overcome? And I think that when you produce thoughts in your mind constantly, even if it takes years, things eventually happen, But when you're out, I've been able to manifest so many things by continuing to use that. And it's been my greatest gift, but it's not just my gift, it's everybody's gift. We just don't really realize that.
Obviously your story is incredible, and I will encourage every single person to click the links right below, right, to continue to learn about you, your story, see your videos and what you have out there, right, and hopefully they see you in person, right, on your gigs all around the country. That I'm sure this is an incredible experience, right, and there's certain parts of your story when we were chatting that first time that I personally relate to, right? I broke my collarbone, same thing. Like, I'm not near as successful as you are, Maggie, but there's some traits of things that we're like, okay,
we're manifesting and working our way through
100. I remember our mother, like, very young, she told us, you guys are really good at manifesting things, like the thing that you want, right? And I was like, wow. And it wasn't until later in life that I actually recognized that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to lean into that very heavily. Or, emailing every single coach to come and play soccer on a scholarship, right? You was like on that tour, you didn't refuse. Like, we got injured, we got scholarships denied, and we were like, I'm going to do it again, right? Type of deal. So there's like these parallels where I felt so close to you in that sense. And I'm sure everybody listening, maybe it's not the same sport, or maybe it's not the same situation per se, but it's like, we are going to get hit many times. And we were on a podcast maybe a couple of days ago that we're talking blessings in disguise, right? And at the moment, they might seem like the world is over, nothing will happen to us. And then what happens is like that event triggers the next level up moment or opportunity, right? And we have to be aware. And I love that your mindset, we call that table face, right? You're like, I'm going for that opportunity, cara tabla, that's in Spanish, right? I'm going for that. I refuse to believe what other people are saying, like, because I know I'm capable. And, on our line of business with content and putting your message out there, sometimes is a big mental game, right? Some people have very polarizing messages, or like, maybe they're selling a product that they truly believe that they help people, right? And is the mental capacity that may be stopping their growth or their company growth to put that message out there. So coming from a third world country, right, we both relate to that. Mm-hmm. When I think when we first came here, we talked about this often, where we felt like we were playing hard, like on level hard back home. And then we come here and this becomes a little bit easier in a sense, right? Because over there you might be worried. Obviously, your story is very extreme, but we lived in a dictatorship, right? So there might be days that you have to do a line of 5 days to put gasoline, right? Or you can't find the products, or like obviously the oppression with education, like all these things. And then you come to a place like United States, where it's inundated with opportunities, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, this is an incredible place for us to grow and build what we want to build and help more people. Yes. On your side, when you saw that, and then now you're speaking in this country and internationally, like, what do you say to those people that they might not have the reference that maybe you had with, your own personal situation? How do we trigger that? Because I now have kids and they're growing up here in the States, and that's one of my biggest worries, right? Like, how do I had that experience, so I know the reference. What do you recommend, or what do you say to those people?
I really believe this, and it might become contradictory to some people, but I really believe that unless you have suffered some, you will appreciate. Unless you have gone through adversity, you'd become more triumphant because you appreciate those things and you learn from those things. And sometimes you have to do that for yourself over and over again, for your kids, to let them see. One of the things that I did when I was in college is I took a group of athletes, because I was part of a Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I was a vice president. And we took them to Mexico to build homes for the poorest of the poor, like stick homes.
Yeah.
And there's no running water, no toilets, nothing. And they came back changed. And I'm like, yeah, guys, this is how I grew up. And without resistance of some sort, but that's teachable, you're not going to grow. And I do this with myself every single day. If it's with working out, with, eating, with different things, I continue to do that because if you don't flex that muscle, it's not going to grow. And it's a mindset muscle. It's being, who you are as a person, that because everything, no matter what you focus on, it could be financially, it could be mentally, it could be health, it could be family. You have to be willing to step outside of the comfort zone. To really be able to see the other side with a brighter sense of, lightness.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. It actually reminds me, this past holidays, I was in Virginia visiting my girlfriend's family, and one of her uncles, he was talking pretty much about life, and he's so easygoing, but he was talking how his past, he was, crazy, and he would get in all sorts of trouble. And I asked him, I was like, what changed? I thought it was just aging, what changed in your life? And he told me the Navy changed me. He's like, I went to, I think it was Pakistan and some other place. And he said, I saw people on the streets, fighting for cardboard on what to sleep. And he's like, that thing changed me. I came back and he's like, my mom told me that I was changed. And it goes hand in hand with what you said, right? Kind of like experiencing that, looking at those things definitely change your perspective. I think my question goes to, obviously there's people that have experienced those things and they get stuck in those places. Maybe let's call it those negative loopholes. And there's people that experience those and then they actually put that to, fuel their purpose, fuel their mission, or fuel whatever it is they want to do next in life. I guess I wonder why. Again, there's many kids that were in that orphanage that were potentially in the same situation. And like you mentioned, some made it, some didn't.
Yes.
What do you think separates, that? Because obviously, and I'm going to relate this a little bit to the content side of things, to business, entrepreneurs, right? We face problems, we face challenges, and it is easy sometimes to get stuck in a negative loophole of thinking, right? And, things are not going my way, I'm experiencing all these problems, right? And then we just get stuck in there. So how do people get out of it? How do people decide to, I'm actually going to do X, Y, and Z for the long term? Because again, it's not like a one-time solution too. And how I avoid falling back into those negative loopholes.
That's such a great question. And for me, the way that I would answer it for myself, and I've known this, is that it all comes down to purpose and passion. Because if you know what that is, you might need a discovery or rediscovery. If you know what that is, then your laser sharp focus on the outcome of that instead of worrying about all the problems and all the things and all the what I'm not in. When you have that laser target focus, all you do is think about how to get closer to it fast or faster and make an impact with it. That's the difference between people who are having tremendously amazing lives that are following because it all comes down to meaning too. Like that purpose is giving you meaning. If you have a purpose or you think you have a purpose, but you don't have meaning behind it, it's never going to be strong enough. And then you're going to wander off.
Yeah. No.
So that's really the major difference.
Yeah. I found it very challenging at times, I'm opening up here a little bit on the podcast, but I'm not gonna lie, I found it challenging to find some purpose, I would say. I love helping people, don't get me wrong. I love when, having I love the podcasting, knowing that, your story is going to inspire many people. I love when I'm on a one-on-one call with a client and, I'm getting to exercise the creative muscle, knowing, that it's going to benefit them. But at the same time, I don't know, I feel some sort of challenge on finding that purpose. And I asked myself that. I was like, man, what is it? I grew up my whole life thinking that my purpose was to play professional soccer. And guess what? It didn't happen. Life changes, And then I was like, okay, I feel like I've been on a constant search for purpose, right? Now, I do like what... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If you were to if you knew that you were gonna die tomorrow, what would you do today?
Oh my gosh. You see, I'm like, I love doing so many things.
He will be asking for 3 days.
I mean, I think
2 more days.
I mean, if I was gonna die tomorrow, I would love to spend time with my loved ones. That's number one, right? Like, I would love to see my family again. You know, they're back in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Beat my brother in a game, obviously. I would like to travel and, you know, experience more environments of joy with, you know, watching my professional teams that I support. I don't know. And, you know, that is a challenge. I know you know Bart, and I've talked about this with him. It's like, I've never, or at least I feel great when I help people, right? I'm like, this is so amazing. I love it. I love the feeling of it. But at the same time, I don't know if when I try to think of like a grand purpose of like, I want to go back home and rebuild, you know, let's say grassroots soccer, which is something I love, soccer. At this point in my life, I don't feel that yet. And I think it's because of the needs that I have now at this moment, right? And to relate this to the audience, and feel free to disagree if you want to, of course. Like, I feel like people are stuck in certain places in their life that their immediate need takes away from finding some sort of bigger purpose that might drive them, right? And
It's almost like I don't have time for my purpose right now because
I have so many needs, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, to relate this a little bit to your story, from what I read, is, you know, obviously you had these struggles, these challenges, then homelessness. You went on to win a contest that gave you like $800 to start your own business. But I'm not sure, and I would love to know if at that point in life your purpose was, you know, I want to inspire, right? I want to go back to Mexico and, you know, help children. Or at that point in time, you had a different purpose, which then once you took care of, you know, those immediate needs that you had, the purpose evolved as well.
Yes, that my purpose when I started my salsa company was to prove my father wrong, but it was based on fear, and it only went so far.
Yeah.
That's why when I let that go, everything fell into place, and because when you're on purpose, it's all about energy, really.
Yeah.
Everything begins to fall into place. And the reason why I wanted to prove him wrong is because he told me that I would never amount to anything, that I would die in prison and with AIDS because I came out to him as gay. And so when he never recognized my success until a week before he passed, and he wrote me a letter telling me, I want to cry. I have the letter here. You want me to read it?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be beautiful.
If you're okay with it, yeah, absolutely.
Oh. I take it with me everywhere. It's 2009. He passed. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
And he said, Maggie, I am so proud of you. You won't know what I mean, but you're from the old school, from the old generation, maybe 50 years back. The generation that had the work ethic and discipline, most of all, a dream and willingness to labor and make that dream into a reality. You are so caught up in what you're doing at this moment that you can't fathom where you'll be in 5, 15, and 25 years. Because of your willingness, it's going to be big. America needs people like you and your values passed on if it is to survive. You are one big asset to everyone in your life, sweetheart. I'm really proud of you.
Wow.
So when he passed, my biggest challenge was, who am I going to prove wrong now?
Yeah.
So I had to do a rediscovery, and I realized that salsa was just a stepping stone to something bigger, which is what I'm doing in stages now, and speaking inspiration and transformation, helping audiences around the world. And it's been quite a blessing. It's in everything that I've suffered in the past. It's been sort of how they say, my mess, my story, right?
Yeah.
Everything has been a blessing because of the hardships that I had. And it's the only way that I can relate to people and really create greater transformations, because I've been through a lot and people can relate to that. So rediscovering was the most key single thing that I could ever do for myself, because it redirected. See, your body, your spiritual self is like a GPS. It's always guiding you to that ultimate purpose. But we don't really listen, and we might go like a GPS around. But even if you get derailed and bad things happen, it's always redirecting you to that center focus. If we would just listen to our intuition, to our guidance system.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to go through stuff, to come out the other side and be a better, brighter person. But not only that, see, I really believe that you have a purpose tremendously, because what you're doing is touching a lot of people's lives. That, just this conversation is a purpose. So if you think you don't have a purpose, think again. Because that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And I know that other people see it that way. Now, another thing, if you wanted to re-center, because you could be purposeful in like the wheel of balance in life, in business, family, all these different things, right? Because one of the things that you don't want to do is get at that old age and be laying on your bed saying, I wish I did this, I wish I did that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just one thing. You can play at many different things in life, and you have to play.
Yeah.
Because that's really what matters. What matters is every single moment that you're breathing and living, because you're going to remember that before you go.
Yeah. That's awesome. Mike, thank you for sharing, especially that letter with your dad. I keep telling Fonzie, it's like you'll see things different as soon as you find out you have a kid. He doesn't have a kid, I have two. And to me, I was in a...
Is that what you're saying, that you've suffered? And that's how you found your purpose? With the kids.
I haven't slept in 5 years, guys. That's true too. But I think, like, for me, when that happened, it brought a ton of clarity too. And it's one of those levels, right, where I put something, I can't find the actual note that I read here, but it's almost like those challenges, like those darker times, is an indicator that you will it's a good thing, right? Here, the problem is an indicator that we're about to grow, right? So it's almost like the problem is not the thing. If the problem comes, perfect. That means that I'm at the edge of growing up a level, right? And I remember when Katie called us, and because we're in a Starbucks that night, working late, I think it was like 8 p.m. and she goes like, hey, I have a surprise for you. And she, like, you could tell that she was like nervous, almost like crying on her phone. I'm like, in my head, I remember turning to Fonzie, I'm like, Katie's pregnant. And I immediately, and she didn't say anything, but I kind of knew it. And I started like shaking, very nervous. And I was kind of like in this state of shock. I came home first, and she told me we both like were like in shock because we were not planning and not expecting it, right? And then Fonzie came, and he cried like a baby too. And, but I remember that night, I almost didn't sleep, but it was recognizing and being aware of that moment where it's like, wow, what we've been doing now, it's like, it's real, right? It's like so real that now, like, this little dude that's about to be born in a few months, like, it depends on us. So for me, that was a big thing, right? Or when we moved overseas, we're like, wow, we're on our own. And there's these things that can be really scary for a lot of people, right? But as you do them more often, right? Or if you face them more often, you start building this resilience as well, right? I remember right after college, we started doing Spartan races and Tough Mudders, because we were playing from soccer, and we're like searching for a physical challenge. Yes. And I remember listening to Joe DeSena, like the CEO of Spartan. He's like, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And, we started with like a 5-mile race, and then we did a 10-mile, and then we did like a 20-mile, and then we did a 8-hour, and then a 24-hour, right? And it's just an exercise for what's coming in life, right? We start tackling these challenges little by little. So on my side, it's helped me a ton tackle like a smaller challenge and then the next one, and kind of seeing that ladder towards like the bigger goal, right? So we started, we wanted to build a business. So what do we do? Maybe we sell a small product. Maybe we offer a small service, and then it grows, and then the team grows, and then new challenges come. So obviously the people that we talk to or they listen to the show, they're in that spot of like maybe they have a business goal, they have a money goal, right? They have a purpose that maybe is very solid for them. What do you recommend to them as like, if it feels like very overwhelming, right? Because on my side, if it feels very overwhelming and very big, it's very exciting. I don't know if that's the same for a lot of people, right? How do you break it down to ensure success and to complete the manifestation?
I call it baby steps of courage.
Love it.
You can't run a marathon if you've never ran a sprint before. And some people are comfortable with that. That's totally fine. But for those who are struggling with that, I think the problem that a lot of people have is they have so many things that they want to do because they just discover something and they don't even know where to start because there's just so much. So I would say pick one, and maybe could be the simplest one. And like you said, what's the next big thing that I do? And you don't have to eat the whole elephant in one bite. You can start small. And that's really the difference between success and failure for many people, because overwhelmment will lead you to fail.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a mentality thing.
Yeah. I think that definitely we've heard it a lot of times about mindset, right? And mindset work. And like you meant, there's so many distractions nowadays, right? And I'm not putting this as an excuse out there, but there are a lot of things that take away your attention from, putting intention into things. And I personally believe the more I see it in my life, I'm like, wow, this is a problem, right? When moments that I have responsibilities, things that I need to do, and my attention goes to something else, right? And then I catch myself, and then it's like, all right, well, now I need to make a decision, right? But at the same time, I believe it's also learning how to manage your energy as well, right? Because when you're faced with some decisions and you're tired later during the day, you might make the wrong choice and then feel guilty about it, and you can go into other things. So I'm curious, right? Throughout your life, seems that was a life of exerting a lot of energy. When you were in the orphanage, a lot of energy into probably protecting yourself, right? Then when you went here on the States, I read that you didn't know the language at first, right? And going into a whole new school, that takes a lot of energy, right? Like being homeless, right? How much energy you're, infusing into thinking about survivalship, right? Like, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to sleep next? Yet you seem to have taken the right choices that led you, on the path that you are right now. So I'm curious to learn a little bit about that on your life around energy, right? How do you conserve your energy? How do you apply your energy to the things that are going to move you forward?
That's such a great question. As far as I think now, at this time in my life, I'm 44 years old, and I've rediscovered the source of energy, because as you age, things change in your body. I had to turn to health and well-being and wellness. What I eat, nutraceuticals, everything that I do, including my morning routine. If I don't do that every day, my energy will slump. And it's so much different now than it was then. Back then was, I want to be something bigger than myself. And that was what kept me going. There was a pivotal moment when I was in the orphanage. I was about 8 years old, and my caregiver, he gave medical attention to the poor for free every Sunday. And one Sunday, like, people would come like from 4 a.m. and sometimes he would finish at midnight or later. But this one Sunday, he had very few patients, and this woman came out of the clinic and with 2 kids. And I was coming down because the house was about a quarter mile from where the clinic was in the mountains. And I came down the hill, and he looked at me and he says, "Can you tell how poor these people are?" And I said, "No." He says, "Look at their hair. It's so thin and brittle and yellow. Look at the kids' bellies. They're malnourished. Look at their shoes, their sandals." And I remember him grabbing me and squeezing my head. He was a big guy. I felt like he was going to pop my head. And he said, "I never want you to be that poor." And then he turned around and gave them like, here's some pesos so you get a ride back, because they didn't even have money for a ride back, and pesos for some tacos, he said also. So I remember very clearly, I turned around and I looked at the skies, and I had a stick. And I remember I said to myself, I'm going to remember this moment forever. And I was poking leaves through the stick.
Yeah.
And then I stopped and I said, I'm going to be something bigger than myself, because someday I'm going to come out of here and I'm going to show people.
Yeah.
So I had that burning desire
Wow.
throughout till I came here to America, because I made a decision then that no matter what happened, that I was going to stay focused, because I saw so many bad things. And it was sort of like a huge aha moment at 8 years old that changed everything in my life. And that was my source of energy. That the thing about focus is you have to remember to remember. See, every day I see my vision, my focus. When you do that, there's less chances of you veering away, or how do you say, getting out of the path.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're looking at it and you see all the potential that you could be. And that is something bigger. If you can achieve something that seems bigger than yourself because you're actually serving humanity and doing something like that, then to me, that's the greatest fulfillment that I can have, the greatest happiness that comes to me.
Yeah.
Nothing else, money, nothing is the source of happiness, but doing something bigger.
Yeah.
And for some people is to being remembered in history, like, but all that matters is what's happening right now, because you're alive.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Have you had because I'm sure you felt it, like, from that moment, right? Your source of energy, and then probably growing up, you also saw moments in your mind where you're like, I'm gonna be there, or you just share a couple of those, right? And deep down, you're like, you see the end, but you don't see the road ahead. You're like, I'm assuming you trust it's gonna happen, right? I'm gonna be doing my baby steps, and it's gonna happen. And this happens a lot at home with me, right? Me and my wife are very, very different, right? And she's very logical. I'm very emotional, and we're learning, like, especially with this new phase of entrepreneurship, to communicate a lot better. But I also see it with other people in the environment that we might be in, right? Or even with our own families, right? That you're like, that's where I want to go. I know I will be there. But how are you going to do it? I don't know, but I know I will be there, right? And there's a lot of people that kind of stop at that point, or they don't even dream to going that further, like in their businesses, or like the things that they're doing in their content, right? We deal with this every single day because we work with a lot of creators, right? It's like, but what do we want to create, right? And I think, like, that's why I think where I like really liked Fonzie's handle, because he says Fonzie creates, right? And then I was like, can I use it too? Because, like, we can create not only content but also, like, our vision or life, right? And I think, our whole journey coming to the States is a whole different thing. But how do we, like, do we actually go ahead and help people and, like, force it? Like, I'm doing air quotations, right? Because, like, I see loved ones and they're like, or we let it be, right? I have that personal conflict sometimes, whether with a family or with a client. It's like, well, if they want to do it, they'll do it. But we know there's so much potential and they can actually achieve it if we go do that. Here's a very crazy, practical, like, small example where I was driving home with my wife and my mother-in-law. And this happened a few years back. We didn't even have the studio at that point. I think, or we were freelancing. And we were dreaming, I was dreaming, as we do on road trips, on where we're going to live, right? And I was, sharing, like, oh, how cool would it be to have this house with, the puzzle room and the gaming room and, like, land so we can do a soccer field and we didn't think about having kids at that point. But it was something like that where it seemed to my wife and my mother-in-law very overwhelming at the moment, right? And they started thinking, like, oh my God, how much is that going to be, right? And I'm like, I don't care, like, whatever, like, we'll figure it out, probably, I don't know, 3 million. And, if we were making like $1,000 extra a month, that day was way too much, right? But I remember that moment because it clicked for me. It was like, some people have it or some people don't. And I was like, wow, the people that have it and are aware of it are in such an advantage today because they can move so much faster towards those goals, and it will become possible, right? So how do you manage your environment to put yourself in a position where like that doesn't affect you too much, right? Because you might be in a family that you share those things, and maybe that, oh, that's crazy, that's impossible, you're never gonna do it, right? For you, you use it as fuel, but so many others that overwhelms them, and then they stop the dreaming, right?
Yes.
How do you manage that? How do you change environments?
This is why sometimes when you dream big, you shouldn't share it with people that don't believe in you, because they're just going to bring you down. I didn't care. I shared my wins that already happened, but that hadn't happened with my friends. Like, be careful, you may not get it. So I learned to stop sharing with those that weren't aligned. But it is all about focus, because the people, the doers that do get there, do one thing in common. And that is, they know their focus and they meditate upon that focus. And what happens, something very magical. People, places, and circumstances start to show up.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that happen, ideas, they're massive action takers. So when they take that action, that just moves them closer to, because, I didn't know the how either, right? But when you just meditate upon it, just close your eyes, even if you can't meditate, and think about that goal and who could come into my life. You're so hyper-focused that you're aware of those things. Let me give you an example. When you wanted that car, and it was a nice car, and you look and you focused on it, all of a sudden, all those same cars with the same color start showing up on the road.
Oh, 100%.
And you notice them. That's what happens when you laser sharp focus on what you want, because you'll recognize those opportunities whereas if you're not focused, you'll miss them.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, we actually went, like, I was obsessed with Jeeps. I saw my older brother have a Jeep. He's 16 years older than me, and I was like, that's my dream car. And when we came here to the city, I'm like, I want it, right? And it's nothing crazy. It's not a supercar, right? But it's like the Jeep. And I remember, like, we having the conversation, and the one time we went to the auto show here in Jacksonville, it's a very small auto show. We went straight to the Jeep, and we sat inside of the Jeep. And we grabbed the wheel and we felt it, and I remember being just there, like this is how it feels to be inside of one, and it happened, right? Like, I was at a job at the time.
Can I tell you? I tell you something? What you did, and I encourage people to do this, and I did this, and you can read it in my book.
Yeah.
What you did is called inspired action. Inspired action. You actually went, touched it, and got inspired by that action to bring you closer to that which you want. That's what you did.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I actually saw, I think, within the context of what we're talking, I think I can share this with, the listener. I think we can turn it into a sort of a tool for them to practice this, right? Because it is a challenge. I've done, the vision boards. I have them in my background, I have them in my phone. I've done a whole lot of, the steps for manifesting. And I still personally have a difficult challenge sometimes to intentionally concentrate on that, right?
Can I give you a tip?
100%.
Get rid of your vision board and create an action board. Because action board will take you to inspired action.
Okay, so
when you
guide me
do
through it. Yeah.
Action, it's gonna take you closer faster, because you're actually taking action on something. I don't know how to explain it. It seems like a miracle, but it's happened to me so many times. And through that process, you actually realize and figure out, oh, that wasn't that important, therefore it goes away. And then you kind of shave off the things that don't work and really focus on the things that do, and it makes it so much more powerful.
So in an action board, you put the things that you're gonna go do, right?
Yes.
So, like, for example, let's say we would like to own a family farm here in Florida where we can just go play and have fun and whatever. Go to the place, experience like the location, go
Talk
like
to
touch
realtors.
the realtors,
Yes.
touch the dirt,
Yeah.
like okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Cool. I like that.
Oh, that's so good.
I know. I have a new task here. I love it. All right. So where I was going with that, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I will definitely take on your advice and I will grab my vision board and turn it into an action board. What can I do, that will help me get closer to those things? And, one of the challenges I was talking about was the constant remembering of these things. Again, we're flooded with messages, with things that we have to do, with people that we have to hang out or do things, whatever, right? Everybody's life is different, but I feel
we get to
that exactly we get to, right? we get to do all these things, but at the same time, it takes away from your energy. So then I feel like people push aside remembering what they want, right? Their why or their mission, all these things, right? Their purpose. And
Can I share something?
Absolutely, yeah.
I do this every single day. Okay, this helps me remember to remember. It's a power card. It's basically like it's short as a business card, and both in teeny tiny letter with lines, and you write on both sides. And that helps me remember to stay focused on what I want. Because business card, why? Because you can put it on your wallet, you can and pull it out whenever. This is what very successful people do. And it could change for you. It could change on a weekly basis, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But when you do that and you pull it out, as a matter of fact, my first, I write in code.
Okay.
And my first thing that I say is, for example, the first one is it's access to infinite intel. So my before word is I believe that I have access to infinite intelligence.
I believe.
So I'm writing short things so I fit more, right? The other one, I'm going to read you another one, broadcast antenna, right? And now I say to myself, I know what that is. And I say, I believe that I'm a broadcast antenna noticed and discovered by the world so that I can make an impact through inspiration. Right?
Yeah.
So if you did something like this and cut it and put it in actually creating a product for this for people.
I was going to be like, where can we buy the power cards from you, Maggie, please? Like, that's so amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I have something, again, I don't have something to that extent. I have something digitally. It's like an alarm that pops every hour. And when I click it, I have my things. And I will say, like, a lot of times I do it, and there's a lot of times still that I don't, right? And this is not like a one size fits all solution, because again, we have a lot of elements in here, right? We have energy, right? We have purpose, like all these variables at a point in time cause you to, make some sort of choice, whether, I read this or whether I don't read this. But the other day I was watching a video where it was talking about how boredom is good, and the guy said in the video, boredom is not a bad thing. Yes, it can lead to bad habits and behaviors, but it can also lead to deep thinking, self-knowledge, and development of your own ideas. And I read that, I was like, wow, how am I using boredom in my life, right? And I've noticed that sometimes boredom might cause me to, let me just grab the phone as an instant reflex and scroll through social media, or, some sort of bad behavior, non-productive behavior. So I started to think, okay, cool. Well, what can I do instead? And the guy actually on that video, he talks about this book that he keeps. I used to write all my notes in paper, right? And I think I might go back to that. I got to see how I manage. I'm a nerd on when it comes to, managing information. But I did like writing things in the book. Well, this guy had a book that he calls it Contemplatio, which is Latin for contemplation, right? Not that crazy, the translation. But regardless, the guy, what he had in that book was like quotes that he wanted to think on. Like these things, reminders for him to, again, know himself better, deep think. And he had some space in there as well to reflect. So whenever he find himself getting bored, rather than pulling out his phone and looking for social media, he would grab this and start reading through it and start reminding him. So I think that's kind of like the power card that you have is what is a tool that, you, the listener, can develop for yourself, or, get the power cards from Maggie, and you can start consistently reminding yourself of those visions, those things that you want to do. I'm going to paint the dark side of it, which I think just came to my head, right? I feel in a way society tells us that when you're tired, you need to disconnect. So the disconnecting looks like Netflix and consuming things, right? And I think we need, in a way, to rewrite what that concept of disconnecting looks like. Because, again, that's where I think those bad decisions comes where boredom hit. It's like, well, I want to disconnect. I don't want to engage my mind in anything. Now, sometimes we go and we play board games, which I love. Again, that goes hand in hand with sharing time with my loved ones, right? I go and kick their butt in board games. Heck yeah. But, there's other moments where I'm like, oh, wow, I need to disconnect. And I think that time could be used with more purpose and more intentional to, grab a potential contemplation book and be like, okay, let me think about this stuff, right? Let me remind myself of my action board, right? Let me remind myself of the things that I want to do rather than, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with this, right? Like, it's good, obviously, to be entertained and once in a while watch TV and whatnot, but rather than looking for those, alternatives that really are not like building up towards your life. So I guess where I want to go with this, my main question for you is somebody that is in that spot, right? Because I believe that I'm very aware of this situation, where when I find myself in that spot, I'm like, all right, what do I do? Right? And I found myself taking the wrong choice multiple times. So somebody they're aware they might find themselves in this situation. How do they cope with this? And maybe if they take the wrong choice, maybe they start beating themselves up and feel a little guilty about it. How do they go about that? How do they go about moving forward, even if sometimes you make, wrong choices?
So it's about self-reflection here. And this is kind of like a bigger part of becoming successful, is that who you are today is a result of all the habits that you formed since what you lived with your parents and what you saw in the world and how you experienced the world with your eyes, because your experiences are completely different, right? So the thing is, you have to delegate time to just say, I'm going to sit down and reflect upon this and say, why is this happening to me? Is this a pattern that I can recognize that's repeated over and over in my past? Maybe it wasn't Netflix. Maybe it was something else that was available. And have I fed that? Or, do I have a chance to break this now? I have this beautiful journal. I call it the Universe Journal. And I provided it to my clients in the past. And the 3 things that I write every day and every night is reflect, because I like to reflect on my life, because I'm always learning and growing.
Yeah.
Release, the 3 R's. Reflect, release is the second one, because if anything kind of felt stuck or is holding me back, I'm going to release it to the universe. And then the other R is request, because now I'm requesting to the universe all the things that I do want. But the reflection part really helps me to see, okay, how did my day go? And I do it by listening to my intuition, my guidance system, because if I feel off, I listen to that. And then I talk about it here, I write about it. And this helps me come through and actually heal. You're doing a lot of healing. Habits have to be healed.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful. And that's one of the things, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really pay attention to these sort of things unless they've hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Right? When they hit rock bottom, that's when people have immediate, huge transformations.
Yeah.
But you have to be mindful to remember that, hey, today I need to look at my life and see where this is coming from. And because I don't want to repeat this. You have the choice to break the cycles. We all have the power to do that. And maybe what you do is add one thing that's new, that's different, to replace that one thing that that by doing it, it's going to change everything about who you are, because it makes you a better person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good.
Fun fact, actually, Apple just released a journaling app on the phone. Like this morning, I was looking at my phone. I was like, wait, I never downloaded a journal app on here. Like, what is this thing? And they have a journal app. So maybe we can, start doing the 3 R's in there. Yeah. And that actually get me to ask, are those 3 R's, part of what you talk about in your book, Decoding Success, the 3 R's of highly successful people?
No, that's a totally different.
That's
3
totally
R's.
different?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So what we're gonna be doing, guys, is putting all the links right below because we do have to go. Maggie, this was an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
Like, so grateful that you've been able to share this message, and obviously the show doors are always open for you. So whenever you want to talk to your Venezuelan brothers, just send me a text.
We're gonna have to do an episode in Spanish.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So Maggie, is there like anything else that you want to add before we head out?
No, I just want to say thank you so much to you both and to everyone else. I just want to encourage you to start looking within because all the answers are there.
Yeah.
You're going to find everything that you need. Your whole being is like an entire universe. You just don't realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. Maggie, thank you for being a light. Thank you for being an inspiration. I'm so stoked that you're in our lives, and can't wait to bring this into the world. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning to the Contents Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at Biz Bros Co.
That is right. And if Maggie here help you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.